under the shed. Margaret. You know that. It's the people from Grove Level. She was in the little Georgia dress, and they own Dalton Marina or whatever. They're related to the Anita. She's married to the nephew. They had the dogs. She had the dog that one time that was her friend did or whatever. I've canceled the reenactment this weekend. Have 6. Ellie did not talk to TJ. Food trucks.
Is that what's right?
Mhm.
Let's just leave.
I see people start running, that makes me nervous. He thinks he'll be back in 30 minutes. Just get that right. I don't know who this little girl is. And I'll say this. I know she can be a smart aleck at home and in here, but she ain't ever done it in public. She knows better. Oh, she's handing stuff out. I'm sorry.
Call the September 6th, 2022 meeting of the Dalton City Council to order. Ms. Sams will lead us in the pledge.
Flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The agenda is before you. Any corrections, deletions, additions? Motion by Ms. Sams, second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Next, under public commentary, I think we have one, Linton Johnson, attorney. Counsel, please step forward. State your full name and your address, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Linton Johnson. I'm an attorney with McCray, Smith and Peak in Rome, Georgia, and I'm here today with Mr. Jim and Mr. Joe Howell. They are brothers that own the property that looks like it's going to be addressed on position number 8 tonight. They are the co-owners of Shorter Properties, and we're just here to be part of the process. And the one thing that Mr. Howell wanted me to let everyone know is that they moved here and they moved their business here 20 years ago to run the DUI and driving school in this very prime location. And they've enjoyed this community and enjoyed running that business in that prime location since that time. And they don't want to lose the business, right? I mean, that's kind of a common sense statement there. But we understand eminent domain. We understand that process. There may be some questions as to what the public use is for this project. And beyond that, what the just and adequate compensation to lose this business at that prime location may be. I don't have a presentation tonight, more so just introducing ourselves, and look forward to working with everybody if this goes forward.
Thank you. Next, I've got a special presentation. If Officer Jenkins will meet me down front. It is certainly my pleasure to be able to do things like this, to honor some of our very, very best employees. It's obviously, we know how well trained our police department is, and you've shown it again, once again, Chase, for your dedication and unselfish acts on July 29th, 2022, that directly contributed to the preservation of human life. We are proud of you and your actions. You're a direct reflection of the pride we take in our profession, and a great example of the selfless acts that our men and women take to help others. If not be for you, I'm sure that would have been a much more serious situation than what it turned out to be. Thank you for honoring your city again. Got a double header of honors tonight. If Mr. Stan Brown will come down from the APWA Presidential Leadership Award.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. It is an honor to be here with you tonight. I am currently the immediate past president of the American Public Works Association. I passed the gavel on to the next president this last week over in Charlotte. And at that event, in some of my remarks as I was going out of office, I had the opportunity to give an award. And I want to represent that award here tonight so that he can also be honored here in his hometown. During this last year as a national president for the American Public Works Association, I've had an opportunity to travel throughout North America, visit a lot of different people, a lot of public works professionals, just like all of our local government professionals out there that are working hard for their communities and making a difference. I really think Public Works a lot of times can be the unsung heroes out there that are basically keeping the basics going within the city. If Public Works is not recognized, that's usually a good thing. Because when they are in the news, it's usually something that's not quite so good. And so I do think that those that work in that profession, I mean, it is a calling that you have. It's a servanthood that you have when you work in Public Works. And the work is not easy. It is an honorable profession, but it takes patience, it takes tenacity, it takes optimism and a selfless spirit. And really that comes to serving the community, because that's really what it's all about in Public Works, is serving your community and making things happen. In this last couple of years, it's really been a matter of trying to maintain some sense of normalcy, where trash continues to be picked up, water continues to flow, wastewater goes away, traffic flows, et cetera. Even though, we all went through a lot of changes in our life and a lot of uncertainty. I think Public Works was able to step up. And I know Dalton was one that we really, when I was working with the Georgia Municipal Association, we looked at the things you're doing in Dalton and how Public Works did step up to deal with the pandemic. And so that's a little side comment there. But each year as the APWA president, there's an opportunity to present and recognize a presidential leadership award for someone who exemplifies those characteristics and traits that I just mentioned before. This year, my honor was to present the 2022 Presidential Leadership Award to Andrew Parker. And as you all know, he's an individual who has distinguished himself with his leadership and his dedication to his community, to the American Public Works Association and the public works profession. As a member of the Georgia chapter, back in 2016, I had the opportunity to be in this room and represent an award that he received at the national level as a Young Leader of the Year. And that was for North America, not just for Georgia, but for North America. And that was in 2016. 2 years later, he was the chapter president for Georgia. I don't think he had even achieved the ranks of 30 years old yet. So he definitely is a young professional that's really, blazing the trail for a lot that are coming to follow. While he was a chapter president, one of the things that I had the opportunity to work with Andrew on was the awards program and also our advocacy efforts. And, we now have within Georgia just a jam up job that we do on awards, recognizing projects, professionals that are working in public works, and also initiatives that go on throughout our state. And Andrew was a big part of putting that together. As chapter president, he really restructured the whole chapter, focused in on the mission, the vision, and the goals of public works and at the state level. It was often called upon to help with our legislative issues that we had going on down in Atlanta, and used him as sort of an expert when we had study committees and things like that to provide his insight. And I know I've experienced that also as I worked with Georgia Municipal Association during the last couple of years. Andrew was instrumental there as well. In the past year, as you know, or I guess it have been probably about June or so of last year, he rose from being a public works director, and you all selected him to be your city administrator. And I think that's a really exhibits the same things that we've seen in Andrew. He really is a mover and a shaker. He makes things happen. He's dependable, takes a lot of initiative. To me, he's a dear friend and one that is a true professional in every way that you can look at it. Having been a city manager that started off as a public works director, I'm really excited to see Andrew kind of following in that same path. And we have a vision within the American Public Works Association of advancing the quality of life for all. And I think in the role he is now as a city administrator, he can do even more to help the citizens of this community and support you, the mayor and city council. With that, again, it's an honor to recognize Andrew as our 2022 Presidential Leadership Award with American Public Works Association. I see him as a true leader in our local governments here in the state of Georgia. I think he's obviously a true professional. And when it comes to public works, that's where he got his feet wet in government, and you can walk around this community and see a lot of the results of his effort. But he's also the things I really think highly of Andrew is that he's a dedicated husband. He's a great father to a couple of wonderful children back there. And most importantly to me, he's a man of faith, and one that I think really sets example for many. So Andrew, you are the recipient of this year's Presidential Leadership Award from APWA, and congratulations. Also have with me the First Lady of Public Works, my wife Cynthia, who came over the mountains with us today to get here to Dalton and be a part of this tonight.
I will say this is not as exciting as saying this in front of 3,000 people when Stan surprised me in North Carolina, but this is a great honor. What makes it so special is really who it come from, Stan Brown. He's the epitome of a public servant. He served his local community, the state, and our country in service to the National Guard. Did I get that right? Air Force and National Guard. I actually took a year off, I think, right, to serve. And so I can't think of a better mentor. Stan, I've had him on speed dial throughout my career, and this is a great honor. I appreciate the honor it's brought to the community as well on the national stage, and thank you for making the trip over. Look forward to the exciting things we can do to continue advancing the quality of life for all in our community. And I'm a little bit disappointed that Matthew didn't give me the reception that Officer Jenkins' daughter did, but maybe one day they can meet up again. Thank you, Stan. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Dan, don't forget your way back because I'm sure you'll be back here pretty soon to do the same thing for Chad. So, minutes are before you from the mayor and council meeting on August the 15th. Any additions, corrections, deletions? Motion by Ms. Sams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, like sign. New business number 4. There's one new 2022 alcohol beverage application.
License for the sale of packaged beer and packaged wine at the location of 320 West Walton Avenue. The applicant is Kanil Kumar Patel. The business owner is Gina Discount LLC, doing business as Smoking Bunny. Is there a representative from the business here? Can you come forward, please? Just like to ask all of our applicants. Yes. No.
Motion by Ms. Sams. There's a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 5, Arcadis Professional Service Agreement Task Order 005A for 631 North Glenwood Avenue Design Services, part of the North Glenwood Drainage Improvements Project.
Thank you, Mayor. Just before I get into these, the 3 items I have on the agenda today have all received a positive recommendation from the Public Works Committee. That being said, this particular amendment task order number 5, the amendment A, this is for design services to complete what was proposed in the improvement scenarios provided by Arcadis in August of last year. That was part of the North Glenwood Avenue drainage study. The designs scope of work will extend from drainage improvements from North Glenwood Avenue, located at 631 North Glenwood Avenue, go underneath the road all the way down to outfalling just north of Elm Street, as referred to as scenario D in his findings. This approach, Arcadis is confident will provide structural hazard flooding relief as well as existing roadway flooding hazard relief during intense storm events where we have water backing up into the city right of way on a major arterial.
Questions? Your motion? Motion by Ms. Sams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Number 6, Arcadis Professional Service Agreement Task Order 004B for Ridge Street Phase 2 and 3 Design Services as part of the Walnut North Drainage Improvements Project.
So this is a professional services agreement with Arcadis to continue their design work as part of the Walnut North Drainage improvements. This portion of the work it will include everything downstream of the Westfield Cemetery improvements, which we're hopefully be advertising for bid in the near future. This particular service will include the bypass system from Ridge Street down to West Franklin, and then the bypass system from West Franklin out falling to Valley Drive, as well as the Greenwood Drive stormwater improvements as well. That was brought, which was a concern expressed by property owners during the public meeting we had previously this year, as well as assisting with the bid package development for the Valley Drive Stream Bank Restoration Project, which is the tail end of the Walnut North stormwater improvements. This cost for this one is $178,000, $685, and the funding sources from bonded capital projects.
Your motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fair, is there a second? Second by Ms. Sams. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 7, 2022 Lemig Milling and Resurfacing Various City Streets Contract Award Recommendation to Bartow Paving Company, Inc.
So this is the, of course, 2022 milling and resurfacing various city streets contract. This bid opening was previously a few weeks ago. The lowest bidder was confirmed to be Bartow Paving. The award amount would, or the cost for completing this contract would be $1,224,319.98, which will come from SP 256 paving 2022.
Your motion? Motion by Ms. Sams, or a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 8, Resolution 22-11 of the Mayor and Council of the City of Dalton pursuant to Chapter 1 of Title 22 and Article 2 of Chapter 2 of Title 22 of Official Code of Georgia, annotated for the exercise of the power of eminent domain for that property known as 312 West Wall Street, City of Dalton, to make findings of public necessity, to authorize the city's legal representative to petition the Superior Court for an in rem judgment against said real estate and appurtenances, including an outdoor sign attached to the building, and for other purposes. Terry?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this resolution's been prepared by my office, the city attorney's office, and laid before you. Just a word of explanation about the background to this. First, I do want to thank Mr. Johnson and his clients for being with us tonight. And we certainly look forward to working with you as the matter proceeds, if that's the pleasure of the mayor and council tonight. As you saw earlier on your agenda, there was an Arcadis study of the North Glenwood Drainage Improvements Project. There have been a number of similar drainage basin studies for this area in recent years. Part of that is under the tutelage of Mr. Parker as Public Works Director. Well, this is another one of those drainage studies that involves a drainage basin. The city has done extensive engineering on what is called the Quavers Valley Stormwater Mitigation and Street Improvement Project. It affects more than simply this street to the west of the city hall called Quavers Alley. It affects a drainage basin, and I'll leave the details if you're interested more to an engineer like Mr. Parker. But with that, city administration came to the point of developing a plan in some substantial detail that would require, in their estimation, the taking, unfortunately, of the Howell sort of properties, the DUI property. It's the property right next door. You'll see a picture in your packet. The city has had the property appraised, made an original offer, and then enhanced that for an outdoor sign that's been on the building and relocation expenses. The point person for that has been Devin Brooks, who's a special assistant in Mr. Parker's office, and has spent some years in doing similar things for the city and the Georgia GDOT. And Howells, the owners, had come back. Mr. Johnson's client had indicated an amount in the counter offer that administration feels they cannot substantially part. And so we were asked to proceed to bring this to you. It's the first step in initiating what we call an interim condemnation. It's a special administered condemnation. It's not a declaration of taking. And we need your resolution of decision first to do that. I'll answer any questions Mr. Parker probably can on his books.
I'm sure we've looked at every alternative to keep from having to do this, correct?
Correct. We engaged some of the most premier consultants in this study, and they've evaluated this basin essentially from Wall Street down all the way to the Crown Garden Archives. And their recommendation included the detention pond at this present location. And unfortunately, there's just no other way to construct the pond without the taking of this property. But it will bring flood relief to the right-of-way areas adjacent to what we know as Prater Alley, as well as downstream, where we've got several noted flooding, historical flooding incidents.
Mr. Blair, this is a total taking, by the way. It's not, we're not leaving any remainder. So, for consequential damages, pure real estate taking, it does requires the lawyers understand the engineers full taking.
I have a question. Mr. Miller, my recollection, if it's not for road purposes, you have to go through this in-rem procedure. Is that correct?
That's what's given to cities and counties. If it's outside transportation, now arguably I think it could be transportation. The management made the decision with the city attorney that this would be the more plausible way to go in light of the timetable that we have to proceed. We do think there needs to be court administration, and so hopefully we've chosen a path that's, I don't know, Mr. Johnson may disagree with the Title 42 declaration, but it does involve streets, so potentially it curves. So we could probably go both ways, but after vetting it, we chose to do it special.
The main difference being the taking won't be until after the special master hearing. Yeah.
Ways to do the things.
Sorry.
Questions? Your motion?
So moved.
Mr. Ferris, second by Ms. Sams. All in favor, say aye. I'll assure y'all, this council is looked at as many different ways we could to keep from doing this, because we don't like having these severe effects on local businesses or whatever. But for the good of the city itself, this is what the recommendation has been. Thank y'all for being here. Number 9, fiscal year 2022 budget amendment number 4 for line item adjustments requested by various departments pertaining to the general fund 2020 SPOS fund and the airport grant fund. Ms. Jackson.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. You have before you budget amendment number 4. It does cause us to adjust our general fund, our SPOS fund, and our airport grant fund. And the general fund will be increasing our revenues $596,485. $4,485 is for a reimbursement for the insurance company for a damaged fire truck or fire property. Transfers in the utility transfer fee will increase $592,000. As you're aware, we'll wait until after the year-end audit. Their auditors do an agreed upon procedure to vet the transfer fee, and it came in $592,000 more than what we budgeted. Expenditures and transfer out $4,485 will go back into the equipment, the fire equipment and maintenance repair. We have infrastructure increase of $407,200, which is the cost to demo the parking deck. We're also moving $200,000 from our service delivery and our LMIG of $399 out of the general fund and into the 2020 SPOS fund, because that's where the contract will be paid out of. And we also have a transfer to the airport grant fund of $30,850. There was an airport contract that was approved on April 4th, 2022, and we needed to increase the amount for our 5% match. So we will be increasing expenditures $442,535. So we will have additional revenue to the general fund over expenditures of $153,950. When we move that money out of the general fund into the SPOS fund, we just have money coming in and then an additional offset for the contract. And then the airport grant fund, the contract that was approved on April the 4th was $737,275 of federal revenue, and then additional transfer in of the general fund of 30,850 for total infrastructure expenditures of 768,125. So neither of those funds it's money in, money out for contracts that we have.
Motion by Ms. Sams, second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Number 10, 2022 millage rate adoption. Motion by Ms. Sams. Is there a second?
I second.
Second by Mr. Fair. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 11, first reading of ordinance number 22-20, an ordinance of the city of Dalton providing for the sale of food and beverages from mobile food vehicles in designated areas of the city of Dalton and during designated hours, to provide for permitting, inspection, enforcement, to provide penalties for violation, to provide for an effective date, to provide for severability, and for other purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This, as you said, is a first reading for several months. The city staff has been working with all the departments that would have some involvement in food trucks, as we know them, or mobile food vendors. The reason we've been studying this is there was a state law change about 2 years ago, Senate Bill 345, as well as the fact that our current ordinances are essentially mute on mobile food vendors. And so we have no ability at the moment to regulate those at all, or to provide any kind of license if we want to allow them legally. So the city clerk and I, chiefs, as well as Caitlin, and also some other folks like DDDA and the Recreation Commission, have been studying what other cities have done as it relates to mobile food vendors. And what we put before you tonight is a first draft. We anticipate some revisions over the next 2 weeks as we continue to receive final comments. But it's a draft that would create a licensing process administered through the clerk's office to allow mobile food vendors with one key location or whatever. It's a city-sponsored event. It would only be allowed in any event that's sponsored by the city or any kind of commission or authority associated with the city, similar to the events we know at Burr Park. Those are administered through the DDDA, so those would be qualified. If this goes well, we anticipate that there may be some appetite to expand that to not just city-sponsored events, but for the time being, we felt like as a staff, this was the best path forward. What the license would require is an active, valid health license with the Department of Health, either here in Whitfield County or the county of origin from which the food truck comes from. The ordinance details the application process to the clerk's office. It also details what the clerk's office and staff will evaluate. One key component of the ordinance is that any mobile food vendor truck would require an inspection from the fire marshal's office through the fire department, as well as producing general liability insurance coverage of no less than $1 million per occurrence, and for bodily injury, and $300,000 for damages related to property. The clerk's office will review these applications and correlation with the departments. On further in the ordinance, it provides rules for the operation of mobile food vendors. And this would be an annual license that expires every December 31st that would have to be renewed by the applicant. One change we know the ordinance will have that's not in this initial draft is we wanted to provide some clarification. Several of the banks in town, as well as small business owners, have had historically food trucks come in to serve their customers where they're not charging. It's not a profit motive. It's essentially an event, special event. We're going to provide a carve out in this ordinance that would allow that to occur without a license. As long as they're not selling food, you can do that. The private property owner would take responsibility for that. And this ordinance has been presented to, as I said, the DDDA, as well as the Recreation Commission. There's some conversations still being had. In about a week, we've got a follow-up meeting to make any fine-tune adjustments to this ordinance. But we wanted to get on record the first draft so that we could begin receiving any kind of public comment or comments from the council as we work to finalize the draft. And I would ask the city attorney if I've missed any key points on this.
Correct, Mayor Council, we, either have in or do intend to put in a carve out for organizations that on their private parking lots and property, are sole source. They're not selling food. Now, understand too, these mobile food vehicles, these are not like, I explained to Mr. Parker in the clerk's office as well, intended what I'm about to say. These aren't these trucks that come around in various plants that don't prepare food. They just have prepackaged items on the break shifts like coffee, soft drinks. This is not a local food. That is not covered by the sort. This is a food prep vehicle that probably has an internal kitchen, has potential for heat and fire. It involves food prep. So I want to be clear.
Thank you. This is the first reading. We'll take action on this on the meeting on the 19th. 12, first reading ordinance 22-21, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, City of Dalton, Georgia, at Chapter 98, Article 5, to provide for the addition of Section 98-50 entitled Naming Buildings, Streets, Parks, Bridges, and Other Property in order to facilitate requests to name or rename city-owned streets, sidewalks, buildings, facilities, and other public places, provide for definitions, criteria, application procedure, and requirements for naming or renaming city-owned streets, sidewalks, buildings, facilities, parks, bridges, and other public places, and for other purposes. Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. This is very much like the prior first reading. This is something the city staff has been working on for the last few months. Currently, the city code, with the exception of street naming, is somewhat absent as to objective criteria for naming all the types of city-owned facilities that you just mentioned. With the exception of streets, we've got a pretty well-defined process the fire department uses for street naming. But with various requests coming in year over year about naming certain facilities city-owned after different things, we felt like it was in the best interest of the city council to adopt an ordinance that would provide some objective criteria for how the city goes about naming these facilities. So what you have before you, I think, is really a very similar ordinance that we've located in other communities in Georgia through GMA to provide this objective criteria, but it essentially provides for 3 scenarios for which the city would consider renaming any kind of street, building, other facility, bridge. And those are something that has local history, and the person making the request would submit a 1-page document explaining what they think that local history has ties to the naming of such structure or facility. The second occasion would be if it's a natural or historic resource. So if there's some kind of stream or other mountain or ridge that we know in the community that has a name, and there's a request to name it after some kind of historic or natural resource, it provides some criteria for that. And finally, a commemorative name, which is where we think about a person, where a facility would be named after a person and their historical or cultural significance to the community. And a person, again, making the application would have to submit a 1-page biographical sketch that would be reviewed by the city council and the staff. And then finally, in that commemorative name, it also says that a person to be considered must be deceased or have made a significant financial contribution to acquiring land or a project to fund a project. And again, the person upon making this request would remit a $300 fee to the city clerk's office so the staff can review it, the city attorney can review it, and make a recommendation to the city council. And that's essentially the ordinance. It's only about 2 pages. I would encourage you to kind of read through it again over the next 2 weeks leading up to the adoption. And if you have any questions, please let us know. We'll work to make any adjustments we need to over the next 2 weeks.
Once again, this is the first reading. We'll take action on this on the meeting on the 19th. Number 13, reappointment of Judy Jolly to the library board for a 3-year term to expire June 30th, 2025. Your motion?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Fair, is there a second? Second by Ms. Selms. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
There being no supplemental business, I'll entertain a motion. We adjourn. We adjourn.
Second.